on that rule at the last minute. They notified us at the end of February that that rule was not going to go into effect till September. And we are in frantic negotiations with them to look at particularly the agricultural frost protection engines that we have in this county that have very low usage. Myself, my cohorts in Lake and Northern Sonoma counties are working with ARB on that on almost a daily basis. We're very close to having a deal. Hopefully we can have something in place fairly soon. And that'll provide some relief, because when the state adopted the rule, they did not factor in these low use agricultural engines. And I asked the board at that time to send a letter to the state expressing that concern. We did that. That letter was not addressed at all in the hearing process, and they're just now becoming aware of the scale of the problem. I don't know if there's a question.
Mr. Brown, I believe Supervisor Pinches has a question.
Chris, how are these rules going to affect, say, out of state, say a business that has, or a trucking company that's positioned right on the Oregon border or the Nevada border, operating in California? Will they be affected by these regulations when they come in? I mean, under the Commerce Code, I don't see how they can be as far as trucking. But what about a construction firm, say that moves into California to do a 2 or 3 month job? What about their equipment? I mean, is there a grace period that they can come in and out, or how's that going to? Because I see it makes California businesses very uncompetitive with our neighbors. They're just going to be positioned around the state and work inside the state and then get by without the regulations.
You're reading my mind, and I've asked ARB these questions. You know, they seem to think that they can require any truck that does business in California to meet California rules. I really question that, and if you look at the court decision that was made on the NAFTA issue with the trucks from Mexico, they're not subject to California emission rules. The court was very clear, and it says that this is a treaty, and a treaty stumps everything. I don't think they've really looked at the Commerce Clause issue, and I don't see them talking to their attorneys until after they get sued as they go through this process. And I absolutely agree. And with some of the portable rules, the requirements are a fleet average. And I was actually asking them the other day, I said, okay, so the fleet has X number of pieces of equipment, and this is their average emissions. What is the fleet? Is the fleet what's in the air district? Is the fleet what's in the state of California? Or is the fleet everything that the company has? And they seem to think the fleet is everything that the company has. So a large construction company, for example, that has offices in multiple states, they think they can regulate that entire fleet, at least through this one person's interpretation. And I just don't think that's the case. I think you can only regulate the equipment that's in California at a given day, but even then, you have to look at the Commerce Clause issue. I mean, it's politics 101. I used to teach government, and I kind of sit there and look at what ARB's doing, and I wonder if any of them paid attention in class.
Back, Mr. Chairman, if I may, back to your earlier comments about the county may have the opportunity to basically be an enforcement agency for the state on this. Until the state knows exactly what the implications are and what the rules are, I think it'd be very foolish of the county to get involved in the middle of that. You know, it's real important to me because in my district, just the Willis bypass is probably a project that's large enough that it's going to draw the attention of out-of-state contractors and whatnot. So everybody needs to know what the rules, they need to know who they're competing against and everything. And it seems to me like the state's kind of got one eye shut on this whole issue, because clearly the Interstate Commerce Code says that you can't restrict the trucking industry from one state to the next. That was proven in the Mexico case here just recently. But I would have the county refrain from even getting involved in this until we see how it even works. Otherwise, we're going to be named in the massive amounts of litigation.
Right. Well, and those are all issues that before I agree to do anything with the state, I mean, the board would have to authorize it, but I want to have some really in-depth discussions, and I've already talked to the CEO's office. Paul's got some experience with these kind of deals with solid waste, where the state is contracted with the local agencies. So, you know, I want to have a lot of discussion about this, and I've yet to see a formal proposal. What does interest me about it is funding. And the state has basically said you're never going to see any more funding from us except for programs like this where you're going to take on some of our workload. And and that we get to tailor our own enforcement to meet our local needs. So there's some opportunities there, but I have to see a lot more information. And trust me, we're not going to jump in this very quickly.
Chris, I have some comments in regards to the diesel emission standards, particularly in regards to NAFTA. You know, allowing unsafe trucks in any shape or form into our state or our country, to me, flies in the face of common sense. So I have immediate heartburn over that situation to begin with. But also in regards to the ARB diesel emissions standards, you know, as being chair, you get to be invited to witness a lot of situations in the county that I previously have been unaware of. Some of them have been visiting some local companies that have fleets of big diesel trucks. A couple of these fleets, you could eat off of the floor panels in the equipment. They are that meticulously cared for. How is ARB arbitrarily going to enforce these things when a new piece of equipment individually is $150,000 to $200,000? Is there no exception for tailpipe emissions testing to see if they meet the requirements? Or, you know, this could be another blow to employers and economy in this county, let alone the state. And certainly, I wish to hear some common sense coming from the state through you, that they're going to allow for a little common sense interpretation and implementation of this program.
Right, and that's where I think local enforcement can make a difference, because we can consider other factors, but it depends on what the deal is with the state. There already is a smoke check requirement on diesel trucks, and there's also a visible emission standard where we can pull a truck over if it's putting out too much smoke. You know, I don't want us to be in the traffic stop business, frankly. We do have that authority. It's not something we do very often. I can think of one situation where I've taken part in a traffic stop that somebody, Willits PD had actually pulled somebody over for excessive smoke. I happened to be right there and I pulled over behind them. But, you know, we're not trained for that. We're not equipped for that. And traffic stop's a very risky thing to do. But the snap idle smoke check that they already do, DOT does that. We have partnered with the school districts. Some of you may remember this. We purchased a piece of equipment for the school districts and for DOT to actually do the test themselves. That's a very common sense test. It lets you know the general health of the engine, and it also helps with the fuel economy when you know there's a problem. These new pieces of equipment, MTA's installed a number of them. They're particulate traps. They significantly reduce emissions, on the order of 85% reduction in diesel emissions, but there's a lot more maintenance involved, and they're similar to a catalytic converter on a car, and they also have a horsepower and a fuel mileage impact. And so there's a number of questions, and I have heard some information that the equipment is not meeting the performance standards. One particular brand actually is not meeting the performance standards. It's one of the larger brands. What we've seen with MTA, the equipment does work. It hasn't impacted their horsepower. It has a very minor impact on fuel economy, and MTA is very happy. But they kind of went with the gold standard level of equipment. I think that the private guys are going to go with the cheapest they can do to meet the standards, and I'm not sure that the durability is there yet. And so there's still going to be several years before these diesel on-road rules are implemented